And we're back, part two. So, yes, we see how this grouping of friends were when they were in their youth. And we even see the introduction of Rachel, where Toby happens to meet her at, at a frat house kind of swing ding. I don't know, a swing ding. I can't think of it right now. A party, basically a party. And references to like late 90s and things that aren't necessarily acceptable now, of how they have this witty banter going back and forth, and they actually hit it off. Rachel was a business major, not yet necessarily in that field of talent agent, but you are to believe that that's where it eventually evolves to. And it seems like Toby had his whole life kind of planned out for himself, aside from his personal life. He was not expecting that he would find such coupling or connection to Rachel. And I love that there are instances here that are very 90s friendly. That's why I say I feel like it relates to my generation, my bracket, my age bracket, because just of the instances of this I will say about New York. I mean, no matter how fairy tale people will want to make it for the film, for the silver screen, but there are those instances, and this is why this show was so alluring to me, because that does happen. You can meet somebody, perhaps even the love of your life, in a party, and those moments of walking the distance, that I don't necessarily think that you would have that advantage in any other state like you would in New York. If you spent hours just walking through a park and talking and connecting, having things in common and bonding, and even down to when they're sharing like a headphone, before it's not, before the whole iPod thing, and definitely before even an iPhone existed, you had like a portable CD man. And you would have to share headphones if you wanted that person to listen in. And those instances really felt like it was a time capsule, and bringing it back to people who can relate, because definitely I found myself doing that a lot. But you can see that their beginning was very romantic and very innocent and very passionate. And then we just slowly start to really have a better understanding of Rachel, which then fast forward, we realize that she isn't dead. They haven't kidnapped her or killed her, because she has some hoity-toity friends where her children happen to go to school. And again, when you aren't part of these institutions, you have to kind of relate to what's there, the other parents and other couplings, just so that you can have play dates for your children. And there's these supposed busy moms who really do know nothing, are living off based on wealth, because their husbands are like tycoons in the pharmaceutical companies and whatnot, and life insurance, and so they live well. Like most of their days takes up of themselves in a yoga studio or whatnot, and going to Central Park and pretending to be bigger than what they are. And they had always been pushing for Rachel to take a break, because Rachel is essentially a workaholic, and almost to a downfall, because the way that also, again, maybe there was some disbalance in their relationship, in their marriage between Toby and Rachel, where for some reason it was never enough for Rachel, almost to the point of burnout. And for some reason Toby had to pay the price for that. He just wasn't well accomplished enough, or he wasn't enough, even though the man is a doctor, for heaven's sake. He saves lives and they live very well, but she just wanted to constantly be reaching another bar and another bar of success, because she came from nothing. And even though she made that very clear to him from the very beginning, that she didn't even have really all that great foundation for her family. Her grandmother raised her, but she didn't grow up with like this like protection of reassurance like Toby did, coming from a Jewish background and having constant dinners together as a family, constant reassurance that they love him and that he's always well protected in that home. She didn't have that. And when I believe they had a dinner, I think it's called Cedar dinner. Again, don't crucify me, but it's very traditional. Or is it the Sabbath? They have something like a dinner where they all kind of come together and they have the challah bread and whatnot. He's very Jewish and proud. And she is part Jewish, but she never embraced that until she was married. And again, the closest, I don't know if I mentioned this in my other video. I also reviewed Scenes from a Marriage, which also kind of talks about divorce and also the Jewish culture. I will link somewhere here in the description box. Please check out that review as well, because I loved that as well. Oscar Isaac is just dreamy. But again, these stories are really thick and juicy when it comes to the nitty-gritty and cautionary of how they can be. I mean, everything in life can be cautionary, right? Even being a parent, or having to deal with an elderly parent, if you've opted not to marry, everything can be cautionary. But it's the interweaving of those stories and how it relates to an audience, how it connects to an audience makes it interesting. So we have some background on Rachel. Then we slowly discover how Toby is kind of letting go of his anxiety of, bump it. If she's gone missing, I'm going to just take care of my kids. He's going through his own issues with his dating scene or his dating life. He has a number of hookups because now he's a single man. And I don't think necessarily he had a great time being single prior to the marriage, but now he's enjoying his life because everything is so readily accessible because of the internet. But one woman in particular he did want like a serious relationship with, and she was in a sticky situation of her own accord. She's married, but they live separate lives, and her husband has to kind of continue this facade of perfection because he's an anchor for like the right wing, and though the man is gay, he doesn't want the audience or even his place of work to know about that. So she's willing to kind of deal with this weird situation as long as he provides for her lifestyle, and she's able to do what she wants, but she can't be seen in public with any of her affairs, and so, or anybody who she's interested in. So she keeps it really casual with Toby, but Toby's like, look, I'm a good catch and I deserve better than this. I'm already dealing enough with my ex-wife, soon to be ex-wife. I deserve a person that wants to walk, take a midnight stroll, or just go to the movies and not have to always lead to sex. So that fizzles out. We also then are introduced to Libby's background and how it kind of semi-mirrors Toby's, not so much in the anger department or resentment department, but sort of, because Libby kind of resents being married and divorcing the idea of being single and being able to do what she wanted like she used to, hook up with whomever when she wanted, the freedom of her own apartment, just the fact that also that she was a working journalist, even, which is a big no-no, slept with a few of her coworkers and perhaps higher ups. But that's not, again, that wasn't to let it be known as if that's how she attained success. It just happened to be that she was attracted to people whom she worked with, and it was always kept on the low. I think one of them was married though. But she was always in pursuit of kind of the same thing as Rachel, success, and to be part of like the boys club, if they want to, if you want to phrase it that way, because she was working for a men's magazine on top of that, GQ I think, and she wanted the heartier articles, and she kept getting passed by and given the fluffier stuff. One author in particular, though, who had been a journalist at that magazine, went off to be a book author, a very successful book author, but he had very male chauvinist kind of perspective. He had one book that was very successful but didn't age well called Decoupling. And then she started realizing that he was kind of like a dick. But when she met him, or they had any kind of interaction in person, he, which I think is brilliantly played by Christian Slater, she introduces herself and says that her name's Libby Slater, which I don't know if that was, on the nose, just to kind of pay homage to Christian Slater, which I thought was funny. But he did an excellent job of being that crude a-hole that just kind of was like, yeah, kid. Glad you like the book. Here you go, autographing it and just kind of sending her on her own little way. And she makes mention how he made bank based on ridiculing the woman's side or perspective and, embracing that disbalance of male chauvinism. But, in the same token, she's analyzing her own life, what she's had to sacrifice to have her children, to have this life that doesn't necessarily sit well with her. She's been unfortunately living in the